This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the first practice of training camp is in the books for the Packers. It was the first for right tackle Zach Tom since signing what was reportedly a 4-year, $88 million extension for the former fourth-round pick. Tom has started every game in the last 2 years and is one of the more underrated players in the league. GM Brian Gutekunst was glad to get a deal done.
He's been an extremely reliable player and person since he's gotten here. For a fourth-round pick to come in, get the opportunity, earn the opportunities that he had early on. He's such a versatile player for us. He has the ability to play all over the line. Certainly he's locked down that right tackle spot for the last couple of years and done such a good job for us. So I think that was important for the Packers to get that done, and excited for Zach and where he's going to go from here.
While Tom was there, Elton Jenkins was not. He was with the rehab group. Gutekunst said he's working through a back injury, believes he will practice when healthy enough. Jenkins reportedly wants a new contract before making the move from guard to center, and he missed all the voluntary portions of the offseason. Meanwhile, Quay Walker also out as he returns from ankle surgery. Could be back in the next week or so. Gutekunst also said wide receiver Christian Watson looks good as he comes back from a torn ACL, though they will be cautious with him. Turning to Wisconsin, they're going to open fall camp Tuesday. Badgers were picked to finish 12th in the conference.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers and Mariners finishing off their series this afternoon out in Seattle. Milwaukee had its 11-game winning streak snapped last night. They'll get tomorrow off before facing the Marlins on Friday at home.
Yeah, we're capable of doing some really good things, but we got to be willing to do the work. And that was pretty much the message to the team. Are you willing to do all the little things that it takes?
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's Matt LaFleur earlier today. Packers training camp is open. Their first practice is in the book. Some comments from players. Mike Clemens just bombarding my email. Like my email is, I don't know. What's the site of a famous war bat? Like the beaches at Normandy. That's what my Outlook inbox looks like this afternoon. Thanks to Mike Clemens. Just bam, Matthew Golden audio, Rasheed Walker out, Jordan Love. It's bang, and it's going to continue until 2 or 3 in the morning. I love this time of year because the Packers are doing things and people are saying things into microphones, and that gives us something to talk about, even though real games are, still well over a month away. We're going to start with the Packers tonight. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Brewers are playing right now, and I don't want to counter program because I think that most people who are keyed in on the Brewers and most people who would tune into the start of this show and be like, I want Brewers talk. Well, those people are watching the Brewer game or listening to the Brewer game. So we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the Brewers in hour number 2. But again, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention they are leading 6-2, and the top of the 5th inning, the Brewers offense did this. Fielding error, fly out, wild pitch, strikeout, hit by pitch, single, infield single, and a bunt out. Christian Yelich with one of the more feeble. That made me so mad. Like I'll take Caleb Durbin or Blake Perkins trying to drop down a bunt in that situation. Christian Yelich dropping a bunt down there, even though it almost worked, to be fair. Maybe you want to throw up a little bit in the studio, but that's Brewers baseball. Another infield hit, more unearned runs, rack them up. The Brewers lead the Mariners 6-2, and well-positioned, I'll say, as plainly and as generically as possible to try to avoid a jinx, to take the series and bounce back. And I don't know if the Cubs game had gone final. They were trailing by a handful of runs. I kind of tuned out of that and tuned into the Brewers, but it looks like they'll be able to pick up the game that they lost last night. I can't keep doing the back and forth thing with the Cubs. These two fan bases are just going at it on Twitter all the time. There's too much season left for me to scoreboard watch aggressively, but I am mindful of the scoreboard. It looks like the Brewers and the Cubs are going to revert or undo the progress or the regression, depending on how you look at it, made last night when the Brewers win streak was snapped at 11. 1 game short of burgers at George Webb. Tragic. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Jesse Temple is going to be here at 5:30 for his weekly Badger visit. Luke Fickell and Badgers players speaking out in Las Vegas today for Big Ten Media Days. Not a ton that's super pressing or super important coming out of that, but it's definitely worth discussing. And Jesse's here once a week anyways, so that gives us a perfect jumping off point. He will be here at 5:35. Mike Clemens was on Bill's show earlier today and dropped a couple hammers. Like I love Mike because it's very clear on a day like today that he absolutely brought his A game, and a couple really good comments that honestly give us a couple segments. I'm like, oh, I want to do a whole 10 minutes on that, Mike. I want to do a whole 8 minutes talking about that. So you hear a little bit of some things that Mike Clemens had to say on Bill's show earlier today. And I'll take your calls throughout, whether it be on the Packers or the Brewers at 608-321-1670. You can comment on the live stream. It's up and running, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And I think today, the live stream especially important because some of our affiliates will be airing the Brewer game instead of the show. And I think that'll be most of the show because the Brewers are in the 6th inning right now. Maybe give the game another hour plus 25 minutes for post game. So definitely the live stream, take advantage of that. Facebook, YouTube, and on my Twitter at Wisco Grant. So Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst both speaking today. And I think the story of camp through the first day, the story of training camp so far, isn't the story of the team in 2025. I want to get to that in a little bit. I thought Mike Clemens did an excellent job kind of establishing the story of this team or what he's watching for with this team. And I completely agree. So we'll get to that. But the story of camp, at least through the first day, in my opinion, is Elgton Jenkins. And in a week, that may no longer be the story of camp. It might not be the story of camp tomorrow. Maybe he'll be back practicing tomorrow. But so far, he is dealing with a back injury. He's been put on the non-football injury list, which some of us looked at and was like, is that a real injury? Is that I don't want to practice without a new contract injury? Brian Gutekunst speaking directly to that. So we'll start with his comments to kind of set the table for our conversation. But again, the story of camp through day one, not the story of the team, but the story of the day one, at least, of camp is Elgton Jenkins. Here's Brian Gutekunst. I combined a couple of his answers to give you the full scope of everything that he said about Elgton Jenkins in his absence.
He's working through a back thing, and again, hopefully he'll be out there soon as well. All these guys need as many reps as they can get. Obviously, Elgton probably less than most, but getting him out there will be important. Well, I mean, Elgton hasn't missed anything, mandatory for us. He's here. Again, he's working through a back thing, and contractually, I mean, listen, there's all kinds of guys on our team and throughout the National Football League that would like different circumstances with that. So that's normal. It's just part of the National Football League. But Elton's always done right by us. I think we've always done right by him. And but we're excited to kind of see him move to this new position because we really do think he has an opportunity to really help our football team. And certainly I think, he played center in college and he was excellent at it. Our football team needs as many reps with him out there as possible, but we got to get to this back thing first.
Has Elgton indicated to you that when this back thing is done, that he is ready to play or to practice, that he will be on the field?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's maybe the most important part of this. Ryan Wood, and hat tip to Ryan Wood for very, very directly asking, has Elgton indicated to you that when his back is good, he will return to practice, that this is not directly tied to his contract?
Has Elgton indicated to you that when this back thing is done, that he is ready to play or to practice, that he will be on the field?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so to recap that, the most important, I think, talking points of that minute is he will be back when the back is good. The team needs the reps with him more than he needs the reps. You kind of heard that communicated. Like, he's played center before he did in college. It's more about the team getting as many reps with him as possible, right? I think those are the two most important takeaways. The team needs the reps with him, and he will be back. I mean, that's not mincing words at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. He could be lying, but we have to take his words at least today, and the show we're doing today, at face value. Here's Matt LaFleur question and answer about Elgton Jenkins. This is all he had to say.
I know Elton's been here a while. He's played some center for you. But how important is it for him to get out there at some point sooner than later to start building that chemistry there?
Yeah, I think the rapport when you talk about your offensive line is critical, especially when you talk about the center position. I think a lot of times it can be often overlooked in regards to all the nuances that position entails. I mean, you are the guy making all the calls. Obviously, you touch the ball on every play. You're the only other guy other than quarterback that touches that ball on every play, and there's nothing more important than that. So just the ability for really the entire offense to get off on the snap count, it really a lot of that rests upon the shoulders of the center.
So to recap, he touches the ball every play. We need him out there. The team needs him out there every day. Brian Gutekunst saying the team needs the reps with him. He's played center in college. We don't really have questions about him. The team needs him out there for reps, and he will be playing once the back is resolved. At least that's what Brian Gutekunst said that Elgton Jenkins said to him. That's all we have to go on today. The small details of Elgton Jenkins' back injury really don't interest me, especially if like he's practicing in 3 days or something. Like if this is just a brief absence at the beginning of training camp and he's back out there getting reps with the rest of the line and with Jordan Love before too long, I don't really think this matters a whole lot. It matters today. It's the story of day one of camp. I'm more interested in the bigger picture with Elgton Jenkins. And I'm more interested in how the Packers view Elgton Jenkins and his fit with their O-line, not just this year, but into the future. And this is something that we don't know. We can't know. We can only guess. We can only assume. But I want to know, are they interested in extending him and continuing with him as a mainstay and a pillar of their offensive line, playing center for not just this year, but more years to come? Is that how they're viewing this thing? Is that what they're interested in? Or is this more of a situationship for a year, right? Yeah, Elton, we want you to be our center for this year until one of these other guys is ready to do it for cheaper next year, and then we'll cut you and move on. Like, which one is it? You know what I mean? Because the Packers behind the scenes could be working on a contract adjustment. It could be. Just because they extended Zach Tom, typically they do the biggest contracts down to the smallest ones. So maybe now that they've done Zach Tom, we could wake up tomorrow, a tweet from Tom Pelissero, the Packers have added 2 years to Elgton Jenkins' contract, big signing bonus, blah, blah, blah. They could be working on that. Or behind closed doors, they could be saying, yeah, we really like Elgton Jenkins. We want him to play center this year, but his contract is up in 2 years. We can move off of him and save a bunch of money after this year. And we got a lot of younger guys in the hopper who we've drafted and we'd like to move on. Is it a situationship, or are they working on a much longer marriage with Elgton Jenkins? I want to know. And we have no way of knowing, right? And again, we could wake up and get news of an extension or a contract adjustment tomorrow. But as of right now, we have no idea. And I'm so curious as to which one it is, right? Jenkins' contention, at least up until this point, and this has been reported, is that the Packers can cut him after this season to save money and move on. And he knows that. And he does not want that to be a thing. He wants security, especially with him changing positions. But I don't think that's that important. Elgton Jenkins can say, well, fix my contract. I mean, after all, I'm changing positions for you. But if I was the Packers, I'd be like, dude, you're playing an easier position. We're already overpaying you to pay that position. The last contract extension that Elgton Jenkins got was a hybrid contract for guard tackle because he was playing a little bit of both. And that contract reflected it. He is a guard who's paid almost like a tackle who's now being asked to play center. He is already overpaid at his position. It's not like a center moving to tackle. Well, you want me to play tackle, you owe me tackle money. No. We're moving the other way. So Elgton Jenkins is already compensated just fine. And Elgton Jenkins can say, well, you should adjust my contract. You should give me a little bit more. After all, I'm changing positions. And he could say that. I don't really think that holds water. Behind closed doors, I think the Packers personnel guys might be saying, well, yeah, Elgton Jenkins knows that, we could move off of him after this year, but we want to be able to do that. That's the whole point. The whole point is we get him to play center for 1 year. We get great value there. And that gives us one more year to figure out what we want to do with Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, Jacob Monk, right? Any of these guys that they've drafted. I just mentioned Monk because he's been worked out at center a little bit in camp. And I mentioned Belton and Morgan because they're first and second round picks of the last 2 years, respectively, right? Like those are just the top names. They could have even more guys on the line. Maybe they view Sean Ryan as their long-term center and they're going to adjust his contract or give him an extension after this year, move him there and then slide in Belton or Morgan to play right guard or whatever. Behind closed doors, the Packers very well could be like, we just want to keep this situationship alive for 1 year and then move on and move to the next thing. Or maybe they are planning to extend him. My frustration is with all of the draft investment and free agency investment in this offensive line, I'd like to think that the Packers aren't in a position where their hand is forced. I don't want the Packers feeling like they have to do anything with Elgton Jenkins' contract. The Packers shouldn't feel like they have to do anything with Elgton Jenkins' contract, unless they want to. But if the Packers feel like, man, we love our options, we love our flexibility, we got a lot of young guys in the hopper, then they should feel like they're coming from a position like, hey, man, Elgton Jenkins, you're going to sit out and miss games? Okay, didn't think so? Well, you're going to be our center this year. I'd like to think that they're operating from that position of strength. Otherwise, what have all these draft picks been for? And what was that money given to banks in free agency? What was that for? If you're going to invest top 100 picks, first and second rounder in successive years, and give massive money to a guard, none of your current O-linemen should be putting you over a barrel, especially one that's already under contract for 2 more years and one that's overpaid at the position you're asking him to play, which is a position that he's comfortable playing. So I don't want the Packers to feel like they have to do anything. They might decide they want to. And if that's the case, then we can talk about that. But I see all of the investment that they've made on this O-line in the draft and in free agency. And I want to feel like they're investing those resources with some kind of long-term strategy, right? And I realize that you bring this point up. I brought it up to Andy Herman on Pack-A-Day. He didn't like it very much. You bring this up around the Cheesehead TV crowd, and they'll tell you, well, but they don't draft for need. What do you mean? Jordan Morgan doesn't need to play. Anthony Belton doesn't need to play. They could just be great depth. When are you morons going to understand? The Packers don't draft for need. Okay, yeah, I understand you don't draft for need. But you don't take a player in the first or second round, especially first, second round, back-to-back years, thinking, oh, they might never play, but whatever. No. Those are players you're supposed to love. You're supposed to do cartwheels over the player that you get at 25th overall or, in the second round. I have no framework for which picks are in the second round, but 50, 60, something like that, right? Like, I understand that the Packers don't draft for need, and they're not selecting guys with the thought process of instantly plugging them in at any given position. But can we agree that it's maybe not the most efficient use of resources to spend a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a bajillion dollars on banks and free agency to then come back the next year and be like, well, yeah, but we're going to pay Zach Tom and we're going to pay Elton Jenkins. And I don't know what they're going to do with Rasheed Walker. We'll see, right? I want to know the Packers' thought process behind Elton Jenkins and his contract going into this year and next, because it's really going to shape my opinion of some of the moves that they've made in the past. Right? If you were planning to pay Zach Tom, and let's say they pay Rasheed Walker too, and extend Elton Jenkins, it's like, okay, so you like all the guys you have. Why were we throwing premium picks at O-linemen then? I understand depth is important. Yeah. But we're not talking about 4th or 5th round picks, which, by the way, is where most of their best offensive linemen come from. We're not talking about 4th or 5th round picks. We're talking about 1st and 2nd round picks and top dollar free agent guards. So I just want to know, and I want to feel secure that those decisions, those investments are being made with some sort of bigger picture, longer term plan in mind. And I'm not going to know that until we watch out and see what the Rasheed Walker situation turns into, and until we see what they do with Elton Jenkins. At this point, my hope is kind of that they just play chicken with him, get him to show up and play this year, because he has no leverage to do otherwise, unless he wants to sit out the year, which would be nuts. He's making very good money to play center, a position that's easier than the positions that he's been playing, and it's a position that he played before and that he's played in college. So I'm interested to see how this Elton Jenkins situation plays out. Not the back injury. It sounds like he'll be back at practice. I'm talking about into the year and into next year, because I can't really get a read on what the Packers are thinking long-term there. And I'm fascinated to see, because it's going to color my evaluation of moves that they've made in the draft and in free agency and with extensions that they've given to other guys too. And that stuff matters. 608-321-1670. You have any thoughts on this? We will get to a little bit of sound from day one of Packers training camp, including a couple of bombs that Mike Clemens hit on the Bill Michaels show earlier today. Some awesome bits of commentary that I wholeheartedly agree with, and I want to get into that next. It's the Wisco Sports Show. We'll talk Packers, and I'll take your calls at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
We'll have a new center this season. I'm just wondering, how much time do you need with Elton this training camp or this preseason to feel comfortable with him at the start of the season?
Yeah, that's one of those things where, that center quarterback exchange, you got to get a lot of reps in, a lot of work with guys, especially when it's somebody new. But, Elton's been a guy who's been around. We've got a lot of reps with him at center with different things that have happened and moving around and just getting snaps in general. So, once he gets back from injury, it'll be great to have him back out there because it's one of those things you want to be feeling as comfortable as possible and get as many banked reps in with our relationship, make sure there's no issues with snaps, no balls on the ground, things like that. So definitely be nice to get him back out there.
That's Jordan Love earlier today talking, hey, how many reps you need with Elton Jenkins? And the theme from Matt LaFleur, the theme in the comments from Brian Gutekunst, and I think you can hear it in Jordan Love's comments there as well. I don't think anyone's concerned that Elton Jenkins is missing out on reps. He's a veteran and has played center before. It's everybody else. Like Jordan Love wants those reps with his center, and the rest of the O-line wants those reps. It's early in camp, so they move the line around anyways. They're trying different things and practicing different things. But I think big picture, if you listen for themes and try to follow, okay, you're hearing some of the same lingo and language between LaFleur and Goody and Love. It's like, yeah, we all want the reps of them. I don't think folks are concerned about Elton Jenkins. And it sounds like if you, again, ask Brian Gutekunst that when that injury is fixed, has Elton Jenkins expressed that he'll be back at practice? Goody said yes.
Has Elton indicated to you that when this back thing is done, that he is ready to play and practice, that he will be on the field?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, we take that at face value. That's good news. What I find to be a little bit more interesting than, he's not at camp. Are they going to miss out on the reps? We could kick that around all day. That's just usual training camp talk. I'm more interested in their long-term plan. Do they view Elton Jenkins as their center for the next 2 or 3 years? Or is it like a situationship, like a friend's benefits thing? Like, we want you to play center this year, but then we want the flexibility to go cheaper and younger next year. I kind of think that might be the situation. And if so, good. He's paid fine enough. He is compensated handsomely for his position. He's switching to an easier position, still getting paid plenty, and it's a position that he's played before. Your thoughts on this and anything else day one of Packers training camp? I am also watching the Brewers. They just got their 15th hit. This looks a lot more like the Brewers that we saw during that winning streak compared to last night, which is a pretty quiet night for both teams, but certainly more so for the Brewers. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, leading off, it's Clemhead Mike from Chippewa.
A hell of a leadoff batter. You know what I had for lunch today, Clemhead, is some leftover pizza from Ted's. I went there with my parents last weekend. I thought of you.
Oh, Yeah, I know. I heard you say that. I said, that's great. Like I said, I hope you appear in Menominee someday, and I can take you out to supper there. We were going to do lots of sports today, but I was more concerned about. I just want to see how your foot's doing, and I know you're a runner.
Yes.
And I don't want to rush back too soon because I got a little quick story about me rushing back too soon from the injury, and it's not worth it. Just got to make sure you're fit before you start running again.
It's been mostly fine. It's just the thing that I need to remember is, like, I can't sit at a desk for too long. I got to get this thing up in the air because, like, it'll start to feel like it'll get really swollen, and then I'll put it up, and 3 or 4 seconds, I'll feel blood just coming down my leg, like back into my body.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the biggest thing. I'm not trying to run on it or anything, although it is annoying as hell that it takes me forever to waddle around anywhere. But I'm not going to go run a half marathon, Clemhead. You don't have to be worried about
that. Well, I remember I went to the orthopedic specialist like you did, and my elbows were bothering me. And he showed me the x-rays. I had bone spurs. They look like fish hooks. They're gross. And he said, right here, when did you break your elbow? I said, never. He said, yeah, right here. You broke your elbow. I said, oh, no, I remember now. A drunken company retreat many years ago. I gave a guy a flying elbow smash, and he moved, and I hit the fireplace. I had a egg on my elbow. Seriously, it was fully the size of an egg, and my entire arm turned black, and people were grossed out. I thought it was just bruising. So like 3 days later, I'm bench pressing over 300 pounds for sets and reps, and I find out after all these years that I was doing it with a broken elbow.
So do they sand the bone spurs down, or what did they do then?
No, they might be able to, but yeah, it's from doing too many. It's a warning to people out there who are lifting. Don't do the lying down triceps extension exercises. They've been known to cause bone spurs. And I used to do them with a lot of weight, and they're not good for your elbow. They're great exercise, but yeah, they're really terrible on your joints. So
laying down tricep, is that where you like hold a dumbbell behind your head and lower it up and down?
Yeah, I would use it like an easy curl bar. I'd put like 150 pounds on it and lower it to my forehead.
Skull crushers, I think, is what is that?
Skull crushers.
Okay, yeah. So, but my frame of reference for so many lifts is from, the Menominee weight room that's turned out just so many just legendary football teams. They had their own, names for the chainsaws and, butt smashers and all these things. But I do remember skull crusher. Okay, that makes more sense. I can picture that now. That gives you bone spurs. I'll stay away from that one. I'll look out for myself.
Yeah. Exactly. That's gross though. I mean, they look like big nasty fish hooks. I thought, God, how come they haven't broken off already? But
well, go smash somebody else with an elbow. That'll break them off. The same thing that caused him could probably fix it too. It probably hurt like hell, but you seem like the type to push through it.
Yep. I just want to make sure that you don't rush yourself back too fast because you can have problems. So
I'm not. No, and I appreciate that, Clemhead. I did go to the gym the other night just to do arm stuff. And it was just so putsy I just hated it. I could do the lifts and everything, but I'm like, it took me forever to get in and out of there. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I do like to swim. So maybe in like 2 weeks, I can try that. The foot's fine. It's just annoying as hell. But I have a vacation in 3 weeks and I'm going fishing. And I don't know, can I fish in a walking boot? If I asked the doctor, they'd say no, but that's why I'm not going to ask a doctor. So there's your foot update for the day. And a story about Clemhead Mike in his prime, although I still think he can bench quite a bit based on what he said. So I shouldn't say in his prime. I think that's just how Clemhead Mike is. Speaking of Clemhead Mike Clemens, he's a big Mike Clemens fan. Bill asked Mike earlier today, Mike, what's the story of camp for you? What are you watching for? And this is what Mike said, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm jealous because Mike was able to articulate this in 27 seconds in a way that I haven't been able to do, even though I've been trying for 2 months. So here's Mike Clemens responding to Bill. What's the story of camp? What are you watching for?
From 50,000 feet, my big question for this team is Jordan Love and Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks. We know what Josh Jacobs can do. We know that they've got a good enough line to get a pretty good running game going. But taking those three receivers and that quarterback to the next level, that's what needs to get them over the hump when you lose 22-10 to the Eagles.
So I have been stumbling all over this idea for the last 3 months. And I've presented it and I've said it 100 different ways. None is direct or as efficient or as accurate as Mike just did. That's why Mike's the best. But I've been talking about all these things like, hey guys, I think we're focused too much on the defense. I hear way too many people. It's like, well, you know, if the defense needs to take a step. No, I think for the most part, the defense was really solid last year. Now they had some of their worst games against the Vikings and the Lions. So I would like I would like for them to be able to perform a little bit better in the biggest games against the best competition. But in the biggest of big pictures and in the playoff game, they did their job. My concern with this team is Jordan Love, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, that core group. Now, Matthew Golden, sure, I hope he helps, but he's a rookie. Like, I'm looking at those guys who are now going into year 3 or year 2 or year 3 together, right? Dobbs will be year 4. Reed and Wicks will be year 3. So Jordan Love in year 3 with Reed and Wicks, Dobbs in year 4. That group on 3rd and 6, can you guys execute in a way that you didn't last year? On 4th and goal, can you execute in a way that you didn't last year? In the 4th quarter of a game where you're up by 4 and there's 6 minutes left and the defense gets you the ball, can you put a drive together? And we know what Josh Jacobs is. And I think I know Tucker Kraft. He's excellent. Like, I think, to Mike's point, you can write down in pen lots of things about this team. I think there are plenty of position groups and plenty of players. We kind of know who they are and what they can contribute to a certain level of certainty, to be repetitive. Can Jordan Love and I think his 2 or 3 closest wide receivers, especially with Wicks and Reed, guys that he basically started off with in year 1, like, can you, year 1 as a starter, he wasn't in year 1, but those guys were. That group that's been together really since Jordan Love first figured it out, can those guys execute in the biggest moments in a way that they didn't last year? That, to me, is the story of the season. I'm going to let this Mike comment play one more time.
You know, from 50,000 feet, my big question for this team is Jordan Love and Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks. That has to – we know what Josh Jacobs can do. We know that they've got a good enough line to get a pretty good running game going. But that's taking those 3 receivers and that quarterback to the next level. That's what needs to get them over the hump when you lose 22-10 to the Eagles.
Exactly. And I love how he referenced that 22-10 game against the Eagles. That wasn't on the defense. Whoa, but Grant, remember when Carrington Valentine got ran over by... Yeah, I remember. You're not going to pitch a shutout every game. You held the World Series champs, the Super Bowl champs to 22 points, and the offense for most of the game was completely and totally worthless because those players that Mike Clemens mentioned, while they all had their moments last year, it wasn't consistent enough. Again, 4th down, 3rd down, keeping drives alive, turning a field goal opportunity into a touchdown, converting in the red zone and you get close to the goal line. And my favorite situation, because it came up against the Niners in the playoffs 2 years ago. You're up by 1 score. The defense gets you the ball back. There's 6 minutes left in the game. You have a chance to put together a drive to eat clock and go up 2 scores. Those types of situations, and those are the players. That's who it's going to fall on. I love that comment from Mike earlier today. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it's Q.
Q. What's going on, Q?
So how long is Jordan Love's contract? Is it 2 more years?
I think it's longer than that. Let me pull it up.
3 more years?
The problem is in the NFL is these guys never reach the end of their deals. They always get extended with, a ton of room in advance. He doesn't become an unrestricted free agent until 2029. So it's this year and then 3 more that he's under contract.
And how long is Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur's contract?
This year and 1 more, I believe.
What did Ed Policy say about lame duck leadership?
Well, exactly. So after this year, if we take Ed Policy's words at face value and he's correct, he's either going to extend them or fire them because he's not going to do a lame duck year. And most organizations don't. So that's nothing unique.
And so Ed Policy was kind of there, but he didn't really decide on Jordan Love being like the face of the franchise. But Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur
Neither did Mark Murphy, though. Like those, they aren't personnel guys. So you could say Ed Policy didn't sign off on the LaFleur hire. Murphy did, but the personnel, that's a little bit too far down the food chain. But keep going. Make your point.
I guess my point is, like, I don't feel like there's any pressure on Jordan Love. Dude got paid. We made a decision as a franchise that, like, he is the face for the next 4 or 5 years, if not beyond. The pressure to me is on Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur. Like, they have underinvested in skilled players on this team for the better part of a decade. They did it with Aaron Rodgers in place, and now like they have made their bet. They are betting on young wide receivers that like are kind of Swiss cheese. None of them look like rock solid players. They all have like good things that may or may not work out and some risks to them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I specifically referenced it. Well, and Mike did, and I'm just using his words to create a segment on my show. Like I think there's so much pressure on those guys. Dobbs, Reed, Wicks, absolutely. But they've invested in skill position players. Just been in the draft. Like they took 2 wide receivers in day 1 and day 2 this last year. They've invested. We just don't know, to what extent they've all worked out so far.
I mean, I have a team at work. If I needed a sure thing where my job was dependent on it, I'm not sure I would invest like in young college talent to come in and make sure that I would keep my job next year. My point is like the pressure that we're putting on Love, like he's going to get another shot at this. If the people that they are having have invested in
his
support.
Job security leash is longer than probably Matt LaFleur at this point. I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And that to me, it's like if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm petrified. Like Gutekunst, you didn't give me much. Like, thank you for drafting a receiver in the first round, but like
they paid Josh Jacobs a mountain of money, and I don't know. They've invested heavily in O-line. They're great. I mean, look, you're painting this as if Jordan Love has been given nothing to work with, and that's just a premise I can't get on board with.
I'm not saying that. I'm just questioning like, who's the guy from the Chiefs that they brought in? Is that the like veteran receiver that's going to train everybody
Hardman?
on how to?
Who cares? Yeah, it's a special team bottom of the roster guy. Like I forget he's even on the team. I don't really care.
I don't know. I would be more surprised if the team won the NFC North than I would be if they got 3rd or 4th at this. That's where I'm at with this roster. I was shocked to see on Bleacher Report that they had says like 5th in the power rankings or something. It doesn't feel like a top 10 team to me. Like we might have a top 10 defense. I think we're like a middle of the road offense unless Jordan Love is the man.
Well, I think that, yeah,
maybe he is.
I think what you're describing is last year, and what I'm echoing. Q, that's a good call. I appreciate it. What I'm echoing, the words of Mike Clemens, is if that's not good enough, and that group needs to be better. You know what I mean? Yeah, they haven't gone out and spent top dollar money on free agent wide receivers, but they've drafted a ton of them, and everybody loves the tight end. The O-line was great last year. They signed the top guard on the market, or one of the top guards. And then they drafted a guy in the 2nd round. So there's been plenty of investment. But Q, to use Mike's words, the 50,000 foot view of that call is Matt LaFleur should really feel like he needs to crank it up and take a step this year. And we'll address that next. In fact, I have a comment from Mike Clemens on exactly that. Excuse me. I wouldn't be more surprised if they won the division versus finished 3rd. I think it's about as equally as likely. That's where I stand. I wouldn't be floored if they won the division. I wouldn't be floored if they got 3rd. I think that seems like even money to me. We're disagreeing. I'm reacting to everything you threw at me, Q, because you threw a lot at us. All right, couple minutes, we'll come back. Let's talk about the Matt LaFleur of it all, because Mike Clemens gave, I think, an excellent summary of who Matt LaFleur is going into year, whatever this is, seven, I think, and where he stands and how he's feeling about this. So, Q, thank you for the lead in on that. We'll address that right on the other side of this break.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
When you listen to the press conferences of Matt LaFleur on our show, you'll think, oh, yeah, this is kind of a passive guy. I'm here to tell you, he's grown into an alpha dog. It's his 7th year. The clock is ticking. He's also grown into the job. And it's probably some of the things that we didn't see off that got him the job. And, you know, when he had that interview with Goody and Mark Murphy and whatever, you know, back in January of 2019. But I'm telling you, you know, moments away from that podium microphone, he's the boss. There's anger. There's accountability. People stand up straight. I think he needed to do that with himself. And he talked about, you know, he doesn't look back much. He certainly doesn't look forward. He is so much in the now, always has been. But you know how he started out today? He went and looked at the day one of practice last year and said, yeah, that was flat. What do I do to change that? So he's on it. He's very much an in-the-moment guy, not very reflective, very much in the moment, but he's far more demanding one-on-one with these guys.
It's more from Mike Clemens, who's on in the first hour of today's Bill Michaels show. So if you go back and want to find his, it was about 10 minutes he did from the sideline at Packers practice earlier today. Really good. That soundbite I really liked, and his commentary that I played in our last segment about, this year from 50,000 feet, the big picture thing that I'm watching in training camp and going into the season is Jordan Love, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. That's the crew. You talk about Matthew Golden, he's a rookie, or Savion Williams, rookie. We know Josh Jacobs is good. We know the O-line is good and deep, and we know the defense isn't going to suck, right? What are Jordan Love and his contemporaries going to do? 4th and 3, need to keep a drive alive. 4th and goal from the 3, got to punch it in. Or my favorite hypothetical situation that I keep bringing up, 4th quarter, Packers up by 4, defense gets a stop. You can essentially win the game with 6 minutes remaining, put a 4-minute drive together, go score a touchdown. Last year, they didn't really get it done in those spots. They didn't get it done in those spots against the Niners 2 years ago in the playoffs either. Defense gave them 2 cracks with a lead with the ball in the second half, and they couldn't do it. Those are the situations I'm looking for. That's the improvement. That's the growth. And it's only going to show up in little moments. The Packers were capable of scoring and winning games last year. It's going to be in the quality of the football played, not necessarily in the quantity of games won, especially with this schedule. So I'll take your Packers calls and thoughts at 608-321-1670. The Brewers are winning, and we'll get into some Brewers conversation in the final hour of the show. Tobias Myers is here. He's pitching. I didn't even know he was alive. You should have seen me. I was watching in bed last night on my laptop when Tyler Black came in to pinch hit. And I knew he was on the act. I knew he was on the 40-man. I knew he was on the bench. But it took my brain, especially because it was 10:30, a couple seconds to process, who? I know that ain't who I think it is. Is that No, we got Burgers on the line, and Tyler Black is coming to the plate. And he did his job. He got on base. He took a walk. Right. And I think even Levering on the television broadcast said, some of the best ball strike discipline, some of the best pitch selection in the organization, not just on the team, but in the entire organization. So we can talk a little bit about what went wrong last night and what is going so very right today. It's 10-2. The Cubs already lost, so it looks like the results from last night will be reversed. Although I can't keep doing the back and forth thing. Mike Clemens, one more time on what I'm describing as the ethos of Matt LaFleur coming into this year, because I think a lot of Packers fans would be smart to listen, wise to heed the words of Mike Clemens here.
When you listen to the press conferences of Matt LaFleur on our show, you'll think, oh, yeah, this is kind of a passive guy. I'm here to tell you, he's grown into an alpha dog. It's his 7th year. The clock is ticking. He's also grown into the job. And it's probably some of the things that we didn't see off that got him the job. And, when he had that interview with Goody and Mark Murphy and whatever, back in January of 2019. But I'm telling you, moments away from that podium microphone, he's the boss. There's anger. There's accountability. People stand up straight. I think he needed to do that with himself. And he talked about, he doesn't look back much. He certainly doesn't look forward. He is so much in the now, always has been. But you know how he started out today? He went and looked at the day 1 of practice last year and said, yeah, that was flat. What do I do to change that? So, he's on it. He's very much an in-the-moment guy, not very reflective, very much in the moment, but he's far more demanding one-on-one with these guys.
I think there's a perception that Matt LaFleur is a little bit of a shrinking violet. And, relative to Dan Campbell, he might be. I also think a lot of Packers fans, from their couch or from behind their podcast microphones, watch Matt LaFleur and say, oh, this guy's such a putz. He's such a puss. He's such a walkover. He's such a buddy with his players. I would be fascinated to see how those people who say those things would react when they're put in that locker room and Matt LaFleur is full of piss and vinegar because his team botched a sequence coming into halftime. You go stand in that locker room and go ahead and tell me those same things. You know what I mean? Like you don't command the attention of a locker room, and you certainly don't win games and have a career longer than a year or two as a head coach without being able to command and without being able to, lead a group of very big, very strong, scary men. You know what I mean? But I do think the pressure is mounting for Matt LaFleur. I think in year 7, it's not pressure as in like you're on the hot seat, you could get fired, although that's always possible in the NFL. It's that it's year 7 and you didn't get over the top with Aaron Rodgers despite a couple of good cracks. And now we've been at this with Jordan Love for 2 years. Now we're going into year 3. You don't just get unlimited chances. You know what I mean? You don't just continue, like, you don't just get to do this for 20 years if the ultimate goal isn't being achieved. And I like that Mike referenced that, I think, in the first 10 seconds
When
of
you
this
listen
answer.
to the press conferences of Matt LaFleur on our show, you'll think, oh, yeah, this is kind of a passive guy. I'm here to tell you, he's grown into an alpha dog. It's his 7th year. The clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking. God, Mike brought it today. I love when Mike comes on. I thought some really good, really, really good observations from the first practice and setting the scene. Like, I think this year is going to be defined by how well Jordan Love and his closest contemporaries can execute. Sure, the O-line and Josh Jacobs and the rookie wide receiver. Yeah. It's about Dobbs, Reed, Wicks, Love. That's the group. And if those guys haven't taken a step from last year, then I don't think the result at the end of the season is going to be any different. And I love that Mike's hammering that home. Okay, 3 minutes. I'll get to some of your comments and some of your texts on the other side. Remember, Jesse Temple's coming up at 5:30. More of the Wisco Sports Show. We'll try to talk some Brewers right after 5 o'clock as well.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Gutekunst.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. I want to get to a call here. Then we're going to talk some Brewers after Zach's update at 5 o'clock. Jesse Temple at 5:30. I got to read you this tweet from Katie Wu, who covers the Cardinals, very good with The Athletic. She says, with their season hinging on their play this week, the Cardinals are shut out by the Rockies 6-0 to lose the series and fall one game over 500. It's the first shutout for Colorado in 220 games, a modern era record. It's all but sealed the Cards' trade deadline fate. Yeah, I heard on Ryan Helsley or Presley. Which one do they have? I think it's Helsley in St. Louis, right? I heard, was it Ken Rosenthal the other day talking about, well, if the Cardinals think they can contend, they might hang. This is why the Cardinals have become an unserious operation. Like, you stop trying to patch this together with Eric Fetty and the corpse of, Sonny Gray, with all due. He's actually been pretty good, but like, this is not a serious baseball operation anymore. So for all the Cardinals people who are in, Brewers people's mentions like me this season, like, oh, well, the Cardinals are going to pass you guys anyways. Like, okay, sure. Yeah. I bet. Yeah, they just need to catch fire here in the second half. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, are you a Pills guy or a lager guy?
Are you saying Pilsner?
Yeah, Pilsner.
Did you call it a Pils?
Yeah, they're all called Pills. What do you want from me? I'm looking at the Summit Pills right now.
Oh, yeah, you live in the Twin Cities now. You would say that. I drink light beer or Spotted Cow. I don't know how to answer the question you asked me. I know that makes me uninformed about beer. That's fine.
Well, that's fine. I asked the singer that we're auditioning tonight, hey, what kind of beer do you prefer? And he goes, I'm a beer guy. And I said, enough said. I'll bring a couple options. But, hey, I just wanted to highlight Q's call. That was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought an angle on a conversation that we've been having for, months at this point, as you've pointed out. But I thought he brought a really unique angle to it. And even the audio that you played a couple of times, Matt LaFleur, he's more angry, right? Yeah. When do you get more angry? When you're more stressed, when you have more pressure on you, right? And so I kind of like his take. I don't know if I am fully with him, right, and what he's trying to say in terms of, where is there more pressure on these players or at the end of the day on the GM and coach. But Grant, if you rewind to January 8th, 2023, right? The Packers need one win to get into the playoffs. They're playing against the Detroit Lions. Aaron Rodgers' final game as a Packer.
Yep. At Lambeau. Lions have nothing to play for.
At Lambeau, Lions have nothing to play for. Also, the Lions have a bottom 10 defense in the league. They're 12-5, but it's because of a freaking incredible offense, right? The defense, led by, of course, who, holds the Lions to 20 points. The offense scores 16 points. Aaron Rodgers' career as a Packer ends without a playoff game, right? That, for me, was kind of the first time where I'm like, you scored 16 points with Aaron Rodgers' career as a Packer on the line?
Yeah, I'd like to hold that against Matt LaFleur, but also Rodgers looked so cold and checked out and just not in it that game. I and it's been long enough now, I can't remember some specifics, but I remember placing that game more on the shoulders of Aaron Rodgers than Matt LaFleur.
Well, it was the 15-9 loss a season prior to the Lions that really put things in doubt, where Rodgers threw 3 picks.
No, I think that was the same season. That was 2022. That was the same season, 22-23, where he threw 2 picks on the goal line. He had David Bakhtiari wide open, and he gave some half-ass throw that barely made it to Aiden Hutchinson on the goal line.
It was brutal, right? But at the end of the day, it's a theme under Matt LaFleur. And at that point, there were Packer fans that are wondering, is Aaron Rodgers just done, right? But to your point that you've made today, this Packers offense in the biggest games and the biggest moments just hasn't showed out. So when I hear that Mike Clements audio, I listen to Q's call. I actually love the take that, Matt LaFleur might be the one where it's like, hey, if things don't go well this year, it's either Goody or Matt LaFleur that probably doesn't get renewed. I think I'm going to plant my flag on that today, first day of training camp. That's where I'm at. If things don't go to plan, if they finish 3rd or 4th in division, miss the playoffs, one of those two are not coming back to Lambeau next year, and it's going to be really interesting to see who. As opposed to trading Jordan Love, and I'm sure they're going to get rid of a couple of receivers, but that's going to happen.
And
I think those two have more to fight for.
Yeah, part of that, and I got to run Vagabond John, which we're up against it here. I don't think that would necessarily be fair, but sports are hardly ever fair. Like, Jordan Love's got a contract. They're pot committed to him for a while. Coach gets fired. Look, that game against the Niners, Jordan Love missed 2 throws on 3rd downs. I don't necessarily even put that on Matt LaFleur, but that's how the sport works. We can kind of roll this over, to the other side of Zach's update, but I do want to talk some Brewers stuff before we get to Jesse at 5:30. 2 minutes, Zach Heilprin, no commercials, no need to turn us off. Stay right where you are.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Packers training camp is officially underway. The team got on the field this morning for the first practice of camp. That includes tackle Zach Tom. It was his first practice since signing a 4-year, $88 million extension. Unlike some of the others looking for new deals, Tom went through the entire offseason program and took part in all the volunteer work. Tom did have the contract on his mind.
Yeah, that's definitely a weight off my shoulder. I let my agent handle it. I did get I wouldn't say I was not stress-free, coming up to this week, but it's nice to get out the way, and now I can just focus on football. And obviously they took care of me financially, so time to get to work.
Now comes the challenge of backing up the deal.
I pride myself on going out there, giving it my all, give my best every week. And for sure. It's nice to know that they believe in me, and now it's just time to go out there and show it.
While Tom was out there, Elton Jenkins was in the rehab group with a back injury. GM Brian Gutekunst said despite reports that Jenkins is looking for a new contract as he makes the move from guard to center, he expects him to practice when healthy. Meanwhile, linebacker Quay Walker passed his physical this afternoon, could practice tomorrow. Turning to Wisconsin, they are going through Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. Coach Luke Fickell said the school has appealed a ruling that made cornerback Niger Forkreen ineligible and is hopeful the NCAA will look at his case again.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers and Mariners finishing off their series this afternoon out in Seattle. Milwaukee had its 11-game winning streak snapped last night. They'll get tomorrow off before facing the Marlins on Friday at home.
Yeah, we're capable of doing some really good things, but we got to be willing to do the work. And that was pretty much the message to the team. Are you willing to do all the little things that it takes?
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Brewers in the top of the ninth, or bottom of the ninth. Tobias Myers getting mop-up duty, and it's about time. Little work for Toby Myers. Good. I saw Aaron Ashby warming up, and I was ready to... Enough Aaron Ashby in garbage time. Especially if DL Hall's only going to throw like 19 pitches to 5 batters last night. Aaron Ashby gets 3 innings in an 8-run game. Give me a break. So it looks like the Brewers will win, take the series. The Cubs lost earlier today. Look, can I just give a message, not of unity and not of support? Brewers fans, Cubs fans, we don't like each other. We don't like each other's teams. Every day I open the timeline and I see Austin barking back and forth about, oh, the Brewers are lucky. And then the Brewers win a game and all the Brewers accounts are like, oh, Cubs fans, what, are we lucky again? It's like, you guys just, they play next week. The Brewers and the Cubs play next week. Let's just wait until then. We can talk all the trash. They have a 5-game series later on in the year with a doubleheader. Just save it for that. I can't do an internet war every single time one team wins and the other loses. I can't. I don't have it in me. But the Brewers now 2 down, look like they're going to secure this 10-2 win, or a win by some measure. The 5th inning is where it started, and it was a hilarious inning. I think I bookmarked. Yeah, here we go. At Druber Law Office tweeted this at me. The top of the 5th inning for the Brewers offensively went fielding error, fly out, wild pitch, strikeout, hit by pitch, single, infield, single, bunt out. Which Yelich, oh my God. By the way, I know Yelich has an on-base streak of like 28 or 29 games or something ridiculous now. Since the All-Star break, he's looked horrible. And I know he has some hits mixed in there. He's looked horrible. Like, people are throwing 97 down the pipe to him and he's late on it. And he has been. So maybe it's just like he had a couple days off and now he just needs a month to get it going again. Well, luckily the bottom of the order and other players on this team have been contributing. But I'll take your thoughts on the Brewers. We can keep any of those Packers conversations, we start in hour number 1. We keep those going. Jesse Temple in about a half hour to continue our discussion of things being said and done at Big Ten Media Days out in Las Vegas. All of it's on the table. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, you got Darnell the Chump
Hey,
here.
Darnell the Chump. How are you?
Well, I mean, it was always going to end at some point, right? That win streak was going to be over.
Correct.
And sometimes you end up on the wrong side of a really, really great pitcher's duel.
It's true.
It stinks, but it happens. And the fact that they came out the next day, guns blazing, 17 hits, I can't be too mad at it, right? That's how you want your young squad to respond to getting shut out.
Well, and I think what you're scared of, Darnell, what I was scared of is they lose that game last night, and then if they lose today, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't want that one loss to snowball into more. And they could lose tomorrow, or they might be off tomorrow, actually. I think they might be off tomorrow. Okay, but you get my point, right? Like, I'm glad you immediately follow up last night with a win so it doesn't start to slide the other way, because we've seen that happen in baseball a good amount. A winning streak can turn into a losing streak very quickly.
Or if, they reach the pinnacle, right? They have the best MLB record.
Yeah.
And then immediately go on a 4-game losing streak just because, they got to the top and then they kind of let their guard down. But no, instead they come out the next day after kind of playing like crap yesterday, right?
Pat Murphy does not strike me as the type to put any guard down. I think they have the right man at the wheel if the goal is to keep the pedal to the metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, individual players on this team let their guard down a little bit, and he just pulls them,
and then blasts them in a presser. Yeah, that's a good point.
At this point, I think Durbin must have like kicked his dog or something, because like why are we watching Sigler?
I don't know.
That's a real honest question.
I want to talk a little bit about Durbin. I have some things that I want to share, but I want to make sure you have your time to get everything else in first. So I'm going to put a pin in the Durbin thing, because I actually genuinely have some questions about the way that Caleb Durbin is being used. I don't have answers. I just have questions, so we can get to that next. But I want to make sure that we wrap up our sparkling conversation first, Darnell, before I take over with that.
Well, I appreciate it. Honestly, just want to hear what you have to say about Durbin, because it does feel like as soon as the Brewers faithful were like, all right, we're on board with Durbin, sounds good, and now he doesn't play.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tweeted earlier today. Let's talk about that, Darnell. I appreciate that. That's a good call. So when the lineup came out today, here's what I don't like, okay? The series finale, or the day before an off day, or a Sunday game, so many people just wait for the lineup to come out. And then when Yelich gets a day off and they're starting Monasterio instead of Trang, everyone loses their gourd. Give up lineup. And it's like, okay, well, a lot of the times, first of all, the Brewers have been unbelievable on Sundays this year. They've been excellent on Sundays. And a lot of times, it's the lineups that you least expect to win that actually do. You know what I mean? So I don't freak out about lineups. I don't freak out about that day, what we're doing today, for the most part. I sometimes comment on trends. So, like, if yesterday's lineup showed me a little something, and today's lineup showed me a little something, and then the next day, okay, well, now I'm going to point something out, and here's what I don't get about Durbin, and I tweeted exactly that, Darnell. I tweeted this today at Wisco Grant at 12:39. Brewers fandom finally decided Caleb Durbin is good, and ever since then, Murph has just unleashed Anthony Siegler as a DH, as a third baseman, as, whoever. Like, it's just finding ways to get him in the lineup. Here's, again, what I don't understand. 90% of the time when we're trying to figure out, would this player be traded? Would this player be extended? We're trying to figure out behind closed doors how Matt Arnold feels about a player. Or as we talked about with Elton Jenkins, behind closed doors, how do the Packers feel about Elton Jenkins and his current deal? Do they want to keep this? I keep calling it, do they want to keep a situationship with him for a year and that flexibility to cut him and go younger and cheaper next year? I kind of like that idea. Or do they actually think, no, we want to get something done with this contract because we want you to be center for the next 2 or 3 years, right? I want to know what they think of him behind closed doors. And sometimes you have to read tea leaves to try to best approximate what they're thinking or what they're saying behind closed doors. With Caleb Durbin, how could I draw any conclusion other than they don't think he's an everyday player? I think that's a fairly safe assumption to draw, given they're not playing him every day, which I'm not going to lose my gourd about. If they think that Caleb Durbin is better in righty-lefty matchups or whatever. Fine. Okay, fine. But then I don't want to be precluded from third base editions at the deadline because, well, where are you going to play him? Well, apparently like every other day because that's how often Caleb Durbin is playing. You know what I mean? I question a little bit why Caleb Durbin is platooned and someone like Bryce Terang isn't. I know his defense is outstanding, but Durbin's defense has been solid. It's not like his defense is a weakness. I just don't know that it's the strength that Bryce Terang's is. I tweeted about Durbin. This was a couple minutes ago. This is actually, I think, during the 5:50 break. Someone replied to me and says, well, Durbin's batted ball metrics stink. Good glove. Maybe he is just in a platoon. Here's the thing. Caleb Durbin's batted ball metrics suck. So does everyone else on this team. Every hitter in this lineup, save for maybe Yelich and Contreras, but with Yelich being, or Contreras being banged up, like his numbers are a little bit misleading. 90% of this lineup is guys whose only strength at the plate is that they swing at the right pitches and they don't swing and miss. No whiffs, no strikeouts, no chase, right? If you go to StatCast, look at chase, look at whiff, look at strikeout. Durbin, Ortiz, Perkins, Collins, all of those guys that round out the rest of the lineup who aren't Churio, Contreras, Yelich are guys who are completely and totally entrenched as offensive players based on swing decisions and their bat-to-ball ability. That's the whole lineup. So don't tell me, well, Caleb Durbin's batted ball metrics kind of stink. Yeah, but then let's look at everyone else. Frelick, too. He's not even playing right now, but Frelick applies maybe better than any of these other guys who I'm referencing. So don't tell me Durbin can't be an everyday player because of his batted ball metrics. Otherwise, the whole team would be a platoon, right? Look, I'm not even that mad. Maybe Durbin isn't an everyday player. I didn't really like him when he became the everyday third baseman option. I told you last week, I thought he was going to stink. There is no one, or there are very few people who had a lower opinion and outlook of Caleb Durbin as an everyday third baseman than I. But I'm a little confused because he's been pretty solid and has shown a penchant for being a bit of a gamer in the biggest moments of the game. And now he's being platooned, not with Eugenio Suarez, not with some other, well, you just got to get him in the lineup, with guys like Anthony Ziegler or Monasterio. So again, I'm trying to read the room and read the tea leaves. And I have to draw the conclusion that the Brewers don't think that Durbin is an everyday player because they're not playing him every day. Does that make sense? So if we start to talk about what they could do at the trade deadline, you talk about third baseman types like McMahon or Suarez. Well, you can't trade for those guys. Where are you going to play him? Well, apparently like every other day, because Durbin is already splitting time with much lesser players than some of these trade deadline acquisition types. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to exactly figure out what they think of Caleb Durbin or what they're going to do with Caleb Durbin. I just don't know. 608-321-1670 if you would like to call or text the show. You can comment on the live stream as well. To reset with a little bit of Packers commentary, it's been about 40 minutes since I played this soundbite. This, to me, is Mike Clemens articulating what I've been trying to articulate for 2 months. The story of camp or the thing that he's most watching for. This is Mike Clemens from earlier today on the Bill Michaels Show.
You know, from 50,000 feet, my big question for this team is Jordan Love and Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks. That has to – we know what Josh Jacobs can do. We know that they've got a good enough line to get a pretty good running game going. But that's taking those three receivers and that quarterback to the next level. That's what needs to get them over the hump when you lose 22-10 to the Eagles.
The situations are 3rd and 6, got to have it. 4th and 2, got to have it. 1st and goal from the 4, you have 4 cracks to get it in the end zone. Got to have it. 4th quarter, you're up 6. The defense gets you the ball back. 6 minutes left in the game. Drive and score basically wins it. Can you execute in those moments, in those situations? That's what I'm interested in with this Packers team this year. Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, wide receivers who are in year 3 or year 4 with a quarterback that's been playing with them all along, now going into year 3, healthy. With an O-line that we all believe in, a running back who we all think is a stud, a tight end who we all love, and a defense. Again, I know this doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement, but this defense isn't going to suck. I don't know that they're going to be elite, but this defense is going to be some level of competent. They have too many good players. I think too highly of Jeff Hafley. I'm not going completely and totally nuts like some of you are. Like, they should just fire LaFleur and let Hafley take over. It's like, oh, I don't, because he gives a good press conference. Like, I don't buy into that. I think he's a good coach, though. So there's so many parts of this team where I'm like, I can assume a certain level of competence. I can assume that the defense won't suck. I can assume that the O-line will be pretty good. I can assume that Josh Jacobs will be great. I can assume that Xavier McKinney, like, there's just things like I can write that in pen. I can check that box. I can believe, I can set that to the side. We're all good. Love, Dobbs, Reed, Wicks. Those 4 players. I suppose you could include Tucker Kraft in there, but at no point have I really been disappointed in Tucker Kraft. I think he's made all the plays that they've asked him to make. I can't say the same of Reed or Dobbs or Wicks. Dobbs more so than Reed and Wicks, but he's another year older, so call it a wash. Those 4 players. That's who I'm looking for in camp and early into the start of the season, because if those 4 players are the same 4 players we watched last year, then this team is going no farther. In fact, they probably won't go as far because their schedule is harder this year. And you could say, well, but what if the defense makes a jump? Great. Okay. So they'll still lose those biggest games. It might just be lower scoring. It might be a little bit closer. Like, I believe that. And not to be defeatist or cynical, but I don't think the defense is the problem on this team. I've been telling you that. It's the offense. And Mike Clemens right there in that soundbite perfectly articulated the exact part of the offense, the exact thing that we need to watch and we need to count on and we need to expect growth from this year. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. They're going to be the same team that we saw last year with a worse record because of a tougher schedule. I want to play for you a little sound from Matt LaFleur, a couple little details from his media availability earlier today. Mike Clemens, nice enough to send over some audio. I cut like the 3 or 4 things that I found to be, call it maybe most important. Let's start with Elton Jenkins. Question and answer, I think from, is this Bill Huber?
I know Elton's been,
yes.
I know Elton's been here a while. He's played some center for you. But how important is it for him to get out there at some point sooner than later to start building that chemistry there?
Yeah, I think the rapport when you talk about your offensive line is critical, especially when you talk about the center position. I think a lot of times it can be often overlooked in regards to all the nuances that position entails. I mean, you are the guy making all the calls. Obviously, you touch the ball on every play. You're the only other guy other than quarterback that touches that ball on every play, and there's nothing more important than that. So just the ability for really the entire offense to get off on the snap count, it really rests, a lot of that rests upon the shoulders of the center.
Matt LaFleur also talking about Jordan Morgan. How does he look in year 2, which is one of the players that I'm individually most excited or most interested to see in training camp?
Yeah, he's done a nice job. His body looks different. So it'll be interesting to let it naturally and organically kind of play itself out throughout the course of camp. But he's going to be, he's going to have to cross train at guard and tackle, and we'll see where it all lands.
Not really an answer that's that illuminating, other than he looks good. Every once in a while you get a coach. Like, I remember asking Murph about Aaron Ashby 2 years ago, and he's like, yeah, it'd be great if he could help the team this year. We could really use him. It's like, well, that's not a ringing endorsement. So a non-answer, I guess, is better than a negative answer, which you won't get from any coaches. You'll get them from Murph. Lastly, Matt LaFleur on the next steps. What are the next steps that your team needs to take in 2025?
Yeah, I think, we're capable of doing some really good things, but we got to be willing to do the work. And that was pretty much the message to the team. Are you willing to do all the little things that it takes? Because it takes a lot to get even to that point, to reach the postseason. It takes a lot we got a really tough division. We got a really tough schedule, and that's the National Football League. So, but you got to do all the little things. And then, you always got to have a little luck on your side in terms of staying healthy throughout the course of the season.
I think that's an extension of some of the things that Josh Jacobs talked about, even with Bill's show at the Super Bowl, where it's like, it's not just on Sundays, it's Monday through Friday, having that same intensity and aggressiveness that you bring to game day to practice. And I think Matt LaFleur maybe hinted at that at the end of last season. He's like, we need Jordan Love to be more vocal. I think Jordan Love might need to be a little bit more of a red ass Monday through Friday, getting guys to lock in and practice at a high level. I think when he talks about leadership and vocal leadership. I think that's what Matt LaFleur is getting at, and I think that's what that answer is getting at as well. Jesse Temple's coming up at 5:30, but I'll take your calls on the other side of this break. In the meantime, whether it be on the Packers or the Brewers, as the Brewers game is now concluded, and I think some affiliates might join in as the Brewers broadcast drops off. Maybe before we get to Jesse, hopefully an opportunity for Brewers fans to call in and share their takes from last night's loss and today's win. That's coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
You'll have a new center this season. I'm just wondering, how much time do you need with Elton this training camp or this preseason to feel comfortable with him for the start of the season?
Yeah, that's one of those things where, that center quarterback exchange, you got to get a lot of reps in, a lot of work with guys, especially when it's somebody new. But, Elton's been a guy who's been around. We've got a lot of reps with him at center with different things that have happened, him moving around and just getting snaps in general. So, once he gets back from injury, it'll be great to have him back out there because it's one of those things you want to be feeling as comfortable as possible and get as many banked reps in with our relationship, make sure there's no issues with snaps, no balls on the ground, things like that. So definitely it'd be nice to get him back out there.
He's working through a back thing, and again, hopefully he'll be out there soon as well. All these guys need as many reps as they can get. Obviously, Elton probably less than most, but getting him out there will be important. Well, Elton hasn't missed anything, mandatory for us. He's here. Again, he's working through a back thing, and contractually, listen, there's all kinds of guys on our team and throughout the National Football League that would like different circumstances with that. So that's normal. It's just part of the National Football League. But Eldon's always done right by us. I think we've always done right by him. And but we're excited to kind of see him move to this new position because we really do think he has an opportunity to really help our football team. And certainly I think, he played center in college and he was excellent at it. Our football team needs as many reps with him out there as possible. But we got to get to this back thing first.
Has Elton indicated to you that when this back thing is done, that he is ready to play or to practice, that he will be on the field?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a little bit of sound from Jordan Love and Brian Gutekunst both speaking today. And I give you Matt LaFleur on Elton Jenkins too. I just think the Jordan Love comment, the Goody comments, a little bit more interesting, maybe give us a little bit more. It's clear that nobody thinks Elton Jenkins is going to fall behind by missing reps. I don't think anyone's like, well, Elton's changing positions. He's got to get out there and get in the flow of things. It sounds to me like the rest of the offense needs to get reps with him. And Jordan Love, the quarterback, that exchange every play, needs reps with him, not the other way around. Which I don't know that that's good or bad necessarily. I just think that's a description of the situation. I don't think it's like, well, guys, don't worry. I mean, it's only going to affect Jordan Love and the rest of the O-line. It's not going to affect. It's not going to affect Elton Jenkins. It's not good or bad. It's just I think a more accurate maybe description of the situation. And again, according to Brian Gutekunst, it sounds like he'll be back when his back is good. I don't know when that will be. And I guess we have to take that at face value that this is a real back injury and it's not, contract related, let's say, NFI, non-football injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. This is what he said. We'll see. Jared and DeForest said, I looked at today's lineup and was like, no wonder we didn't get 12 in a row. Just lucky to get that far. Today will be a grind. And then we pound 17 hits. Baseball doesn't make sense sometimes. Yeah, that's why I try not to freak out about lineups. 17 hits, 10 runs, 0 home runs today. They got close. Blake Perkins hit the wall and Terang hit a moonshot at the end once the game had been decided. That's typically how he operates offensively. But Platinum Glove Defender does lots of good things. Don't get me wrong. On Caleb Durbin, I did look at his righty-lefty splits because up until this point, I really hadn't. It's definitely stark, but I think that's not anything that isn't true of other players on this roster. I could look up, I'm not going to look it up on the air. I could look up Terang, right? Or I could look at other players around the diamond. I think you're getting Yelich, for example, righties v lefties. By the way, Yelich has looked awful since the All-Star break. I know he's continuing this on-base streak, and that's good. He's behind every fastball. He just, I don't know. This isn't turning into pick on Yelich time. They just won another series. I'm just telling you what I saw. I'm telling you my observations, if you will. 608-321-1670. A couple minutes here before we get to Jesse Temple on the other side of the break. I do have a little bit of Luke Fickell audio, if you are interested, from Big Ten Media Days today. And I did edit the audio in a way. You talk about unethical. A lot of people say the Brewers play unethical baseball. This is maybe unethical audio editing. This is Fickell to Colton Bartholomew earlier in the spring on the Nazir Fork-Urine situation versus what he said today. I edited them together so you could really hear the contrast.
Nazir's kind of in a tough position. Why is that? Well, he's got that hearing in May later.
He's playing.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know why would there be any tough situation.
He could be ruled.
No, he's not going to be.
Yeah, we got to prepare like he's not there, and we got to move forward. It was one of those things that was always in the back of your mind. We need to be able to go forward, not have it, just like an injury.
Zach Heilprin shared a couple of cuts of Luke Fickell on Nazir Fork-Urine. Says they've applied or filed an appeal, whatever that means. Here's Luke Fickell.
Filed an appeal, putting it into the hands of the NCAA to say, look, we're not trying to change the landscape of college football. We see that happening every day. And the NCAA, for whatever, you get hammered over the last 3 or 4 years over all the things that are going on. But what I would like to say is that they have an opportunity now to, we're not changing college football, but this is something that can change a kid's life. This is a one incident. I just hope that they will sit down with him and give him an opportunity to kind of express and look at his appeal in a different way and see where it goes from there.
Fickell also concluded his media today by saying they're not sure how long a potential appeal could take.
No, we don't. We filed the appeal as of yesterday, and now it's kind of like it's in the hands of the NCAA, and so I got to have confidence in the NCAA that I'm not saying telling them what to do, but that they'll at least, like you said, look at this and say, let's sit down with this young man and just see what this thing is really all about in a different committee, because it's not changing the landscape, but it is changing a kid's life.
Luke Fickell did make a comment today, jokingly. Zach Heilprin tweets, Fickell was asked about roster limits and joked, are there rules in college football? Are there enforceable rules in college football? Now, I don't know if he's probably got a hair across his ass, and I would too, over the Xavier Lucas situation. And Luke Fickell has every right to be annoyed and feel slightly unlucky because of what's happened to his quarterbacks the last 2 years. That being said, on the Nazir Forkurian situation, it's like, well, are there even rules in college football? Yeah, and they were applied. You can't have another year of eligibility. There's a rule. You want a rule being enforced? That has happened with Nazir Forkurian. It's unfortunate for him. It's certainly unfortunate for the Badgers. But I don't think you can chalk that up to the lawlessness of college football and anything. It's the opposite. It's the lawfulness of college football. I think coaches and fans like myself are mostly annoyed because it seems like it's a little few and far between, or a little inconsistent, to say politely, when the NCAA actually chooses to enforce rules, or which rules they ever even want to enforce, or when. It's a little bit of a mess. Jesse Temple, to talk about all things Badgers Big Ten Media Days. He will join us next in just a couple minutes.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant on the Wisconsin Sports.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Filed an appeal, putting it into the hands of the NCAA to say, look, we're not trying to change the landscape of college football. We see that happening every day, and the NCAA, for whatever, they get hammered over the last 3 or 4 years over all the things that are going on. But what I would like to say is that they have an opportunity now to, we're not changing college football, but this is something that can change a kid's life. This is a one incident. Like I just hope that they will sit down with him and give him an opportunity to kind of express and look at his appeal in a different way and see where it goes from there. No, we don't. We filed the appeal as of yesterday, and now it's kind of like it's in the hands of the NCAA, and so I got to have confidence in the NCAA that they, I'm not saying telling them what to do, but that they'll at least, like you said, look at this and say, let's sit down with this young man and just see what this thing is really all about, the different committee, because it's not changing the landscape, but it is changing a kid's life.
Another appeal, another committee. And that's never reassuring when you hear we're putting it in the hands of the NCAA. Oh. You sure there isn't like a felon could put it in the hands of and I trust anybody more than the NCAA. A homeless bum under an underpass. Can we have them rule on this? Feel like it would be faster, probably more accurate. Great. So we'll discuss this more, especially as the week moves on, and then we get into next week. I was just texting with our friend Nick Osen. He's going to come on next week, and we'll probably check in with Zach maybe one more time before the week is done, because Big Ten Media Days, right, are going out in Las Vegas, and Zach's out there. We might even have him in and around studio tomorrow. And obviously with Packers training camp starting up, that's something that we're going to follow pretty heavily as well. But in the meantime, Jesse Temple makes his appearance every day at this time, or every Wednesday, I should say, at this time. Here is our conversation from earlier today. Jesse Temple is here, Badger Connect, with Big Ten Media Days going on. Works nicely. Jesse's making his routine stop on Wednesday. The quotes that I'm reading from Luke Fickell seem to be a little bit, Jesse, of a reiteration of some things that we've already heard and things that we kind of already knew to be true, right? Wisconsin hasn't been meeting the standard. We need to raise our level of physicality, et cetera, right? Kind of what we heard from Luke Fickell today out in Las Vegas. Really just a continuation of the things that have already been said, right?
Yeah, well, the coaches stand up there on the dais for about 10 to 15 minutes to give their overall impressions of the program and say whatever they want to say. And they're going to use the same talking points that have been heard ad nauseum, but certainly Luke is willing to be honest about where things stand. And he mentioned that certainly last year is not the standard, and that's not why he was brought to Wisconsin. And he called it a 131-day journey from the first day of fall camp, which is going to be this Tuesday at UW-Platteville, to the end of the regular season, with the goal being to get Wisconsin playing for championships. Now, it's nice to say all that. And as we know, the schedule is brutal. Wisconsin hasn't been relevant in several years, and there is a lot of work to be done. But at least there's some optimism within the program, given the changes they've made this offseason.
Do you think, if for no other reason, that certain players along the Badgers offensive line, backfield, quarterback, I mean, even people close to the program but not playing, alumni, boosters, do you think this change in offensive philosophy, if nothing else, will just bring a little fresh energy and just bring kind of a much needed maybe mental reset to where the program's been the last few years, even if it doesn't necessarily lead to a better record? And with this schedule, there's certainly no guarantee that it will.
I was going to say, Grant, I don't know if it brings much fresh energy if they lose 52-7 against Alabama and don't win a single game of consequence this year. At this point, yeah, I thought spring ball was very enlightening. And as I've said several times, what they're doing just makes so much more sense for what Wisconsin has been and can be in the future. Obviously, Luke tried to do something different that hadn't been done at Wisconsin. With Phil Longo, it didn't work. And now they are doing what you called a reset with an offense that is predicated on physicality, being able to run the ball, but also doing some things that are more dynamic in the passing game. Look, we'll see whether it works or not, given the challenge that Wisconsin faces here in the schedule. But I think the staff has at least done what it can this offseason to put itself in better position to succeed.
And again, like, I don't know that it'll lead to more wins, and I don't know that the energy will be any different if they keep getting clobbered by some of their rivals. But I think, to your point, in spring ball and maybe now, I think this maybe different vision and different focus, especially for the offense. Hopefully it's a shot in the arm for this group because they probably need one after the way the last couple of seasons have gone. Fickle was asked about roster limits, and Zach tweeted this quote. That's where I see it. And Fickle said, quote, "Are there rules in college football? Are there enforceable rules in college football?" And I know he's joking, but it's a striking difference. I listened to Bielema yesterday. He was like, college football is so different. It's great. It's awesome. I mean, we're playing, our players are getting paid via PayPal. And there was this excitement and almost optimism about where the sport is going. And then you listen to other coaches and it's cynicism and it's negativity. Did you notice any differences with anything Fickle had to say about the state of college football, maybe relative to some of the other Big Ten coaches who have spoken so far?
I mean, I guess so. I'm going to be honest, Grant. I'm not really paying attention to what most of these coaches have to say. I guess because it's just talking season. I can't bring myself to care. I probably shouldn't say that as someone who covers college football, but I really only cover Wisconsin, and this is pretty consistent with what Luke has been like the last couple of years. Like, things change so dramatically, so quickly. There used to be a 120-player roster limit. Now it's going down to 105. And I don't know what that's going to look like for Wisconsin. It means there are not going to be as many walk-ons probably, which has been a strength of the program over the years, but so much has changed in the last 2 years. I mean, a year ago, were we talking about guys suing the NCAA over antitrust laws to try and get another year of eligibility and then having it being overturned in a 2-1 vote 12 days before fall camp? It's crazy what college football has become, but there's still a lot of pageantry and people will hopefully still show up to watch the games.
Awesome. Well, Jesse Temple, Badger Connect, and you can hear him on the camp with Zach as well, who is out in Las Vegas. We connected with him yesterday. So a couple of players out there. One of them, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have it in front of me, is Ricardo Hallman one of the players out there?
He is, yes. It's Ricardo Hallman, Jake Renfro, who's the center, and then Billy Edwards Jr. is the quarterback.
That's right, the quarterback. I want to talk specifically about Ricardo Hallman because, when the Badgers were at their best, at the end of the Fickle era or whatever, that defensively, they always had a couple star players that seemed to be these big, passionate vocal leaders. Is Ricardo Hallman that kind of guy, or is he just an excellent player and more of a lead by example type of dude on the back end of that defense?
He strikes me as more of a lead by example type of guy. I know when he got here, he was very quiet, and by nature, when you play a lot, you earn the respect of your teammates. You take on more of a leadership role, but he's going to be maybe even more important this year, given the Nizer Forkery news, and that's what I was referencing previously, of course, when I was talking about the antitrust lawsuit and it getting overturned. Nizer Forkery was going to come back for another year as a 2-year starter, and now Wisconsin has to move on without him. Well, Rico is still there on the other side. Has started for 3 years at Wisconsin, could have gone to the NFL, obviously came back. I do wonder what it's going to look like in terms of whether quarterbacks even decide to challenge him, because as it stands now, you're looking at potentially Emilio Agard, who's a second-year player, or Miami transfer to Yoni Hill, potentially starting outside opposite Hallman. And maybe they make some other changes. Jameer Latimer, who they brought in, was playing in the slot. They could move him outside. Well, how much do they want to even target Hallman? So I'll be intrigued to see what his impact is on the game. But, man, he has certainly put himself in position to have a good year. Physically, he looks so much different. Much stronger and more confident this year.
Have you had any conversations with him about his decision to come back instead of going to the NFL, and maybe what he hopes to accomplish this year to better his spot trying to become a pro next year?
Yeah, well, if he was told he was going to be a first or second round pick, he would have gone to the NFL draft. But that is a big reason why guys end up coming back. I think 2023 was such a phenomenal year for him. He picked off 7 passes. That was the most interceptions by a Wisconsin player since 2007, the most by a cornerback since Jamar Fletcher in 2000. And Fletcher is sort of an all-timer at the position for the Badgers. And then last year wasn't a bad year for him, but he wasn't targeted very frequently. And it felt like when he was in big moments, maybe he would have liked to have a couple of those plays back. So I think just getting stronger and more consistent film will help him be a better NFL player.
I want to ask you briefly, just to look forward to a little bit to the non-conference games, because we're close enough, Jesse. I feel like maybe I can ask you a question or two about those games early, at least in an abstract way. But first, a quote from Luke Fickell that I was digging for, and I wanted to ask you about this. Wisconsin is and will continue to be a traditional football program. It's really critical and important to me that we focus on the traditional things that make the Wisconsin football program great, and we will continue to grow on those things. Is that just commentary on physicality and running the football? And that's Jeff Grimes, or is there something else maybe that he's hinting at there that you've picked up on or you've been thinking about?
One of the things Luke has talked about frequently is culture, and he referenced it again in his introductory statement there at Big Ten Media Days. Now it's hard to define. I think he thought he knew what Wisconsin was from afar based on when he was at Ohio State. I don't really know how much attention he's paying to Wisconsin when he's at Cincinnati, and then he got here. And he's talked about there not necessarily being the leadership that he wanted, at least initially, alignment from the coaching staff as well. And I think that's been a process. So that might be part of it. But yeah, I mean, the things that were staples at Wisconsin for 30 plus years, physicality, run dominance, wearing down an opponent over the course of 4 quarters, we haven't seen that in quite a while for the Badgers, and certainly not in the Fickell tenure. So that is kind of, when you talked about the standard, you can start there.
Okay. Well, I like that. So we are now a little bit more than a month away. And, you know, Jesse, the month is going to go quickly because once they get back in fall camp and everything kind of picks up steam and momentum towards the end of the summer. But Miami, Ohio, Middle Tennessee, both of those games at home, let's just talk about those because I'm interested to see how they might look different from the Western Michigan game and the South Dakota game from last year. Could Badgers fans maybe get excited thinking about the idea that this team, specifically this offense, is more equipped to overwhelm and beat up lesser talent in a way that maybe they weren't last year in non-conference, and maybe that's a way to build some confidence that they couldn't last year?
If you're a Wisconsin fan, I would certainly hope so.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to go back to this style, then you better be able to punch some dudes in the mouth and, well, whatever other cliche you want to use, stomp on their throat, put the foot on the gas, just completely dominate wire to wire. We didn't see that during non-conference play in either of the first 2 seasons when Fickell was here and Phil Longo was running the offense. Go back to year 1. Yeah, the Badgers beat Buffalo in the first game by 21 and Georgia Southern by 21, but those games were closer than they should have been in the second half. You mentioned Western Michigan a year ago. It took a muffed punt in the 4th quarter just for Wisconsin to get the lead. And then South Dakota, which is an excellent FCS team, Wisconsin should be able to win that handily. And they were deep into the game, and it was still pretty close. So if they can pummel those 2 opponents going into Alabama week, at the very least, it'll make people feel better about where things are headed. But, of course, that will prove short-lived unless you can put up a good fight in Tuscaloosa. And, obviously, the rest of the schedule, which very well could feature 6 teams ranked in the AP Top 25, and that doesn't even include Minnesota, Iowa, and Washington, all of which are good teams.
So I would tend to agree. And I know the matchup in Tuscaloosa is different. I'm just looking at those first 2 games. That's an opportunity to flex your muscles. And I think, and I'm glad that you confirmed what I was maybe going for there. And like, that's an opportunity to flex your muscles in a way that maybe they weren't equipped to do last year or the year before, even going back to that game against Buffalo, where it's like it took into the 3rd and the 4th quarter for the Badgers to really pull away and look like the better team. What can we expect at Badger Connect, maybe following Big Ten Media Days and we get towards fall camp next week?
Yeah, well, we've got a new Badger Bites video out today with me, a walk and talk on State Street with Rico Hallman, the aforementioned Rico, and Daryl Peterson. They've been best friends forever. Fun guys just to talk with, learn a little bit more about their backstory. And then tomorrow I've got a feature on Mason Reiger, who's a guy that no one's really talked about since he got here because he transferred from Louisville, got here in January, and then immediately underwent yet another knee surgery. Very fascinating guy who's kind of put together a pretty inspirational Instagram account if you were to go check that out. So had to sit down with him. We'll be previewing fall camp on Friday. And then next week, we're getting into it, man. Like I said, the first fall camp practice, which will be open to reporters, is Tuesday at UW Platteville. And I'll be out there basically living there, it feels like, for the next 2 weeks, but I can't wait.
Let's go. The road to Platteville is almost open. Well, Jesse, I appreciate your time. Thank you as always.
Thanks, Grant. Talk soon.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
When you listen to the press conferences of Matt LaFleur on our show, you'll think, oh, yeah, this is kind of a passive guy. I'm here to tell you, he's grown into an alpha dog. It's his 7th year. The clock is ticking. He's also grown into the job. And it's probably some of the things that we didn't see off that got him the job. And, you know, when he had that interview with Goody and Mark Murphy and whatever, you know, back in January of 2019. But I'm telling you, you know, moments away from that podium microphone, he's the boss. There's anger. There's accountability. People stand up straight. I think he needed to do that with himself. And he talked about, you know, he doesn't look back much. He certainly doesn't look forward. He is so much in the now, always has been. But you know how he started out today? He went and looked at the day one of practice last year and said, yeah, that was flat. What do I do to change that? So, you know, he's on it. He's very much an in-the-moment guy, not very reflective, very much in the moment, but he's far more demanding one-on-one with these guys.
Demanding, vocal leadership, things of these nature, things of that nature. Jeez. Last couple minutes of the Wisco Sports Show. I was just reading this quote that Andy Herman posted from Josh Jacobs, and maybe tomorrow I'll try to dig up this audio so we can listen to it. But Josh Jacobs on leadership in Green Bay, this is what he had to say. I feel like, one thing about being a leader, it's not always easy and it's not always doing what's comfortable. Sometimes you've got to ruffle some feathers. Sometimes we got to hold each other accountable. And that's something that I try to do. I try to say the things that people are afraid to say. Whether I'm talking to Xavier McKinney, or I'm talking to Jordan Love, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's got to be held to the same standard. Even myself. For me, man, I feel like the greatest teams are the teams that are the closest, but also the teams that hold each other the most accountable. That's what we try to do. We're trying to set the standard high. I feel like to be able to do what we want to do, what we say we want to do, we've got to live what we sell. So that's kind of where I'm at. Man, I like Josh Jacobs a lot. I think this goes back to, I remember Matt LaFleur in his end of season press conference back in January asking, what does Jordan Love need to improve on from year 2 to year 3? So from last year to this year. And the number one thing he mentioned was leadership, vocal leadership specifically. And I remember a lot of Packers fans heard that. And I'm like, well, what about interceptions? And what about setting his feet when he throws? And what about, play action and all these things? Because there were so many football things that were coming to mind because the football wasn't good enough down the stretch last year. Wasn't good enough against divisional opponents and, other elite teams like the Eagles. The offense wasn't good enough. So we're like, vocal leadership. What are you talking about? You would say that of someone who already had all the football stuff mastered, right? But I think what happened last year is Matt LaFleur spent every single week of the season screaming into the void about how these practice habits weren't good enough. The operation isn't clean enough. The focus isn't strong enough. And then that showed up every Sunday with mental mistakes and miscues and all these things. Team not being ready to go. And I think by a certain point in the season, Matt LaFleur said, I can only scream this so many times. It's clearly not landing. I need someone else preaching this message with me. I need a second voice or a third voice, but I certainly need it to come from Jordan Love because he's the quarterback of the thing. He's the star. He's the guy running the show. So I think when Matt LaFleur talked about we need Jordan Love to be more of a vocal leader, that's why. And I think this Josh Jacobs quote, and again, I'll try to get the audio tomorrow. I don't know if my email has just become a dumping ground for Mike Clemens. We got Zach Tom, and we can talk about that a little bit. Well, we got a minute here. I just got an email with Zach Tom on his new deal. Does new deal validate his game? Now he has to back the contract up on the field. That sounds like an uplifting, positive comment to maybe wrap up the show. Here's Zach Tom talking about his new deal just a little bit earlier today.
You got to earn it every day, no matter what. And yeah, nothing's going to change with my mindset. I'm still going to come out here, work every day. Got to prove it every day because, you can get exposed at any point in this league. So, yeah, for sure. You still got to go out there and show that you're worth it.
I like Zach Tom a lot. I'm glad they did that decision. I'm glad they did that deal. We've talked about that for weeks, so that's nothing new. We'll hear a little bit, maybe more from him tomorrow. Matthew Golden, we'll hear from him tomorrow. Josh Jacobs, I'm really interested to hear him talk about leadership, vocal leadership especially, because look, he's not a rah-rah guy, or he's more of a lead by example guy. I think you get to a certain point and that's not enough. You don't get to, I said this of Christian Yelich earlier this year, you don't get to eschew, you don't get to skip out on leadership responsibilities just because, well, I'm not really like that. I'm not really a vocal guy. I'm not really a rah-rah guy. Well, you got to find a way to be that guy. Tom Brady was a lead by example guy, but he would also blow his lid, very vocal on the sideline. And Mahomes too. I don't need Jordan Love to be like almost fist-fighting teammates. We don't need accountability to that end, but probably a little bit more, maybe a little bit, again, vocal. That's why I say vocal leadership, I think is something that was probably lacking last year. Just take Matt LaFleur's word for it. Corey and Marshall, I got to sneak this in the end. This made me laugh. He says, just a side note quickly on Badger football. UW football hasn't been in good shape since 2019, not just the past couple of seasons. Yeah, I know, but then 2020 was the pandemic. What do you do with that? 2021, I don't even remember what happened that year. And then it was the 2022 season that Paul Chris got fired. So you kind of throw that one out the window. You throw the pandemic out the window. I don't remember 2021. And then these last 2 years, when I say couple of seasons, I'm referring to the Luke Fickell era. You know what I mean? So I guess that's why I said that, Corey from Marshall. But 2019 is not last year. That's not 2 years ago. 2019 is the new 2016. And that is the year we all look back on. It's like, I miss when things were like that. Life was a lot better when things were like that. So we can continue that conversation tomorrow as Big Ten Media Days continue. But we're certainly going to talk more Brewers. That kind of got put on the back burner today because it was day one of Packers camp, which we will also address tomorrow. We'll hear more from players specifically. I'll go through and find some cuts tomorrow during Bill's show that kind of hint at some of the things that we're discussing and some of the conversations that we want to be having. So that's coming up tomorrow. Enjoy tonight. No Brewer game, no Cubs game. We can just relax. We'll get back at it tomorrow at 4. The podcast will go up in just a couple minutes. Appreciate you listening. Always.